Most people assume vegetables belong in soil. But what if I told you that some vegetables actually grow faster, healthier, and produce bigger harvests in nothing but water? Even more surprising, a few of these can keep producing for months without ever touching a garden bed. Today, we're uncovering 10 overlooked vegetables that grow better in water than in soil. These aren't the usual lettuce and green onions you've seen 100 times online. We're talking about forgotten vegetables, ancient growing methods, hidden hydroponic favorites, and a few plants that most gardeners never realize can outperform traditional soil gardens. But before we get into the list, drop a comment right now and tell me, have you ever grown a vegetable in plain water and watched it take off faster than the same plant in soil? A simple yes or no is perfect. I read every single comment, and the stories people share on this topic always surprise me. Now here's what makes this worth your time. If you've been trying to get real food out of a small space, a balcony, a patio, or even a sunny kitchen counter, these 10 plants quietly change what's possible for you. Because when you force a water-loving vegetable into a pot of dirt, you're not helping it. You're capping the harvest before the plant ever gets going. Let's fix that. Let's start with number 1, water spinach. And if you've never heard of it, you might know it by its other name, kangkong. Most of us grow up believing that every vegetable started life as a land plant. Water spinach didn't. Its botanical name is Ipomoea aquatica, and that word aquatica tells you everything. This is one of the very few vegetables that naturally thrives in shallow ponds, ditches, canals, and marshes. For this plant, water isn't a substitute for its home. Water is its home. And here's the part that genuinely blows my mind. Look closely at the stems and you'll notice they're hollow. Those hollow stems work like tiny built-in snorkels. Oxygen travels from the leaves, down through the stem, all the way to roots, sitting in low oxygen water, where almost any other vegetable would suffocate within days. Botanists call that spongy internal air channel a parenchyma tissue, which is just a fancy way of saying the plant builds its own air delivery system on purpose so its roots can breathe underwater. Now flip it around. When you plant kangkong in ordinary garden soil during hot weather, its growth can actually slow down. It evolved to sprawl fast across a cool water surface with its roots bathed and comfortable. Dry dirt in the middle of summer is the exact opposite of what it's asking for. So ask yourself this: how many so-called difficult plants have you buried in soil over the years that were quietly begging for water the whole time? Number 2 is watercress, and this one hides a flavor secret that almost no home grower knows about. You've probably seen those postcard images of watercress growing wild beside cold running streams. That picture is accurate, but it's only half the story. That peppery, mustardy bite you taste in watercress comes from a group of compounds called glucosinolates. Big word, simple idea. They're the plant's natural defense chemicals, and they're also exactly what gives watercress its signature kick. Here's what growers have discovered. When watercress has gentle water moving around its roots, it often builds up higher concentrations of those peppery compounds than the same plant sitting in stagnant water or packed, compacted soil. The movement of the water itself seems to turn the flavor up. That's the real reason commercial watercress farms keep water flowing continuously through their beds. Most people assume it's only about oxygen. It's also about taste. Moving water grows a bolder, spicier leaf. And that's something a dry pot on a shelf can never give you. Because for this plant, the environment isn't a background detail. The environment is the flavor. Number 3 might be the most useful plant on this entire list, if you cook Asian food at home. Chinese celery. If you've ever grown regular celery and sliced into a stalk only to find it hollow and stringy inside, you already know how frustrating this can be. Chinese celery is even more prone to it, and those hollow stems come down to one main cause: inconsistent moisture. The soil dries out, the roots hit a stress point, and the stem tissue develops unevenly as a result. Water culture removes that problem right at the source. Professional hydroponic growers noticed that when the root zone stays evenly and constantly moist, the hollow stem issue drops dramatically. The roots never experience a single drought stress moment, so the stems feel in solid and uniform from the inside out. That's exactly why hydroponic Chinese celery is so popular with commercial growers across Asia. Steady water gives you steady stems, every time. And keep that idea in your back pocket, because it's the quiet theme running under this whole video. So many of the plant problems we blame on ourselves are really just moisture swings we never even noticed. Number 4 is Malabar spinach, and it teaches a trick that sounds completely backwards until you understand why it works. Malabar spinach loves heat. Above ground, it wants a hot, humid summer, and it will climb and keep on climbing. But its roots feel very differently about temperature. The roots do not want to bake. So here's the overlooked move that water growers use. They keep the nutrient water a few degrees cooler than the surrounding air. Cool roots below, hot vines above. The roots keep pulling in nutrients efficiently because they're comfortable, while the leaves and stems soak up all that warmth up top and grow fast. That separation, warm air paired with cool water, often pushes faster vine growth than you'd ever get from warm garden soil, where the roots end up cooking right alongside everything else on a hot afternoon. It's a small detail, but it's the kind of small detail that separates a struggling plant from one that simply refuses to stop growing. Number 5 brings us to herbs, specifically peppermint and Vietnamese mint. And this one flips a belief most of us never think to question. We all assume that bigger roots mean a bigger, stronger, more flavorful herb. More root, more plant, more flavor. It sounds obvious. It's also not quite true. In water culture, a slightly confined root system, roots that are a little restricted rather than sprawling endlessly, often triggers the plant to build up higher concentrations of essential oils. And those oils are the flavor and the aroma. They're the entire reason you grow mint in the first place. This is why a lot of commercial herb producers deliberately avoid oversized containers. Give the plant too much room and too much root expansion, and the aromatic compounds actually get diluted across all that extra growth. Keep the roots a touch contained, and you get stronger flavor from a smaller plant. More mint on the plate from less mint in the pot. Once you understand that, you stop chasing size and start chasing intensity. Now we're halfway through the list, and I want to check in with you again, because your answers really do shape what I create next. So tell me down in the comments, which of these first 5 surprised you the most? The built-in snorkel stems on water spinach, the moving water flavor trick with watercress, or the cool root secret behind Malabar spinach? Just type the number. And while you're down there, if this is teaching you the why behind gardening and not just the what, that's exactly what this channel was built for. So go ahead and tap subscribe so the next one finds you. So, number 6, and this is the one I genuinely wish more people knew about. Sweet potatoes. Almost every video you'll ever find about sweet potatoes obsesses over the tuber, the big starchy root you dig up at the end. And that's fine, but hardly anyone talks about the leaves. And in water, the leaves are where the real magic happens. Grow a sweet potato in a hydroponic setup and something fascinating tends to happen. The plant often pushes out an enormous amount of leafy top growth while producing very few storage roots underneath. In a traditional soil garden, that would feel like a total failure. In water, it's actually the whole point, because those leaves are a serious vegetable in their own right. Sweet potato leaves contain more vitamin K than the tubers themselves. They're packed with lutein, which supports healthy eyes, and they're rich in antioxidants too. Across huge parts of Asia, people don't even grow the plant for the potato. The leaves are the main crop, harvested again and again like spinach. So you end up with a cut-and-come-again leafy green that most of your neighbors are tossing straight onto the compost heap. It's free food hiding in plain sight. And it raises a genuine question worth sitting with. Would you rather dig up one potato after 4 long months, or harvest tender, nutritious greens off that same plant every single week? Number 7 is a real oddity, the Egyptian walking onion. Most onions, if you try to keep them alive in water for the long haul, eventually rot. The bulb sits wet, slowly softens, and turns to mush. Egyptian walking onions simply don't play by that rule. Once they're established, they regenerate from little bulbils, tiny clusters of baby onions that form right at the top of the stalk, instead of depending on one big underground bulb. That means the plant keeps renewing itself over and over. You can maintain a nearly continuous harvest cycle in a shallow water container, snipping greens and pulling bulbils while the plant just keeps on going. That kind of near-permanent, perennial behavior in a water setup is almost never discussed in home gardening. Most people have no idea it's even possible. But for someone with limited space who wants an onion crop that basically refuses to quit, it's a quiet game changer. Number 8 is garlic chives, and it comes with a feeding trick that beginner videos skip over entirely. The instinct with any leafy plant is to feed it as much nitrogen as you possibly can. Nitrogen grows leaves, so pile it on and get more green, right? Garlic chives respond differently, and this is the genuinely useful part. If you ease off the nitrogen slightly as harvest gets close, the plant shifts its energy. Instead of pumping out soft, mild, leafy growth, it starts building up more of the sulfur compounds that carry that punchy garlic flavor. Serious water growers sometimes cut back the feeding deliberately during that final week for exactly this reason. Lower the nitrogen, and you sharpen the taste. It sounds like a tiny adjustment, but it's the difference between garlic chives that taste like mild grass and garlic chives that actually taste like garlic. And here's the thing. You only have that kind of precise, week-by-week control in water. Try dialing your soil's nitrogen down for one specific week and see how far you get. Number 9 is Swiss chard, and this one solves a mystery that drives water growers a little bit crazy. Picture this. Your nutrient levels are perfect. Every number checks out, and your Swiss chard just stalls. It sits there, refuses to grow. Most people immediately blame the fertilizer and start adding even more, which usually makes nothing better at all. The real culprit is oxygen. Swiss chard has an unusually hungry root system that pulls dissolved oxygen out of the water faster than lettuce, faster than a lot of other common greens. So even in a rich nutrient solution, those roots can end up starved for oxygen. And when oxygen drops too low, the roots can't take up nutrients properly no matter how much food is floating around them. That's why commercial growers crank up the aeration specifically when they're growing chard. More bubbles, more air in the water, and suddenly the plant takes right off. The nutrients were never the problem. So hold on to that word oxygen, because we're about to see it's the secret hiding underneath this entire list. Number 10 takes us thousands of years into the past. TARO. Long before anyone had ever used the word hydroponics, ancient farmers were already growing food in water. Taro is one of the oldest examples on the entire planet. Farmers across the Pacific Islands and Southeast Asia cultivated it in deliberately flooded fields, and this wasn't the plant simply putting up with a soggy patch of ground. The flooding did real, deliberate jobs. Standing water suppressed weeds, so the taro never had to compete for space. And it kept the large underground corm cool and steady while it developed. But here's the sophisticated part that most people miss. Those traditional systems weren't stagnant swamps at all. Farmers built gently flowing irrigation channels that constantly refreshed the water and carried fresh oxygen right down to the roots. Sit with that for a moment. Centuries before air pumps and nutrient meters and any modern equipment, people had already figured out that moving, oxygen-rich water grows better food. Those ancient taro ponds were water-based farming in everything but the name. So the next time someone tells you hydroponics is some brand new high-tech invention, you'll know better. We didn't invent this, we rediscovered it. And that leads straight into the single most important thing I want you to walk away with today, because it ties all 10 of these plants together. Across almost every water-loving vegetable on this list, the real limiting factor isn't fertilizer. It's oxygen. Most of us assume that if a plant is growing slowly, it must need more food, so we add more nutrients. But if the dissolved oxygen in the water drops too low, the roots physically cannot absorb those nutrients efficiently, no matter how rich the water is. You can have a perfect nutrient mix and a stalled, yellowing plant at the very same time, and the missing piece is simply air. That one idea is why a well-aerated water system can outperform both a stagnant jar and poorly drained soil using the exact same nutrients. It's the quiet reason some vegetables truly excel in water, while others just sulk. There's a second hidden advantage too, and it's easy to overlook. In soil, a plant spends a surprising amount of energy just searching for water. When the moisture in the ground is uneven, the root tips are constantly pushing out into new areas, hunting for the next damp pocket. In water, that search is over before it even begins. Moisture is always right there, instantly available. So the plant redirects all that saved energy upward into leaves and edible stems instead of long exploratory roots. For a leafy vegetable, that often means a faster harvest for you rather than a bigger root system you'll never even eat. And it goes deeper than behavior. Scientists have found that several of these semi-aquatic vegetables actually switch on entirely different genes when they're submerged, what researchers call flood response genes. Those genes tell the plant to elongate its stems quickly, to build the internal air channels we talked about with water spinach, to run a flood-tolerant metabolism, and to move oxygen around far more effectively. So these plants aren't gritting their teeth and merely enduring the water. They're actively rewriting their own biology to take full advantage of it. And that's why some species look like they suddenly come alive the very moment you move them out of soil and into water. Here's the historical bow that ties the whole thing together. Many of the world's oldest cultivated vegetables, including water spinach, taro, lotus, watercress, and Chinese water chestnut, were domesticated in marshes, wetlands, riverbanks, and rice paddies, not on dry farmland. Modern hydroponics isn't inventing a strange new way to grow them. It's rebuilding the exact environment these crops evolved to dominate in the first place. We spent centuries dragging these plants onto dry land, and now we're finally putting them back where they always belonged. So let's bring this home. If you've ever felt like you were doing everything right and still watched a plant struggle for no clear reason, let this whole list be your permission to stop blaming yourself. Sometimes the plant wasn't failing at all. It was simply in the wrong element the entire time. Some vegetables genuinely want soil, and a surprising number of them, 10 of which you now know by name, quietly want water, oxygen, and a grower who finally understands what they've been asking for all along. And the best part? You don't need a big backyard for any of this. You don't need expensive gear or a fancy setup. A shallow container, clean water, that you keep moving and oxygenated, and the right plant for the job. That's a real, productive garden sitting on a balcony, a patio, or even a kitchen counter. Now I want to hear from you one more time, because this is where the best conversations always happen. Out of all 10 of these vegetables, which one are you actually going to try first? The kangkong, the sweet potato leaves, the walking onions, or something else entirely? Tell me in the comments. And if you've grown any of these in water before, please share exactly what happened, because someone scrolling through this comment section is about to try it for the very first time, and your experience might be the one thing that saves their plant. If this gave you even one genuine, "I had no idea" moment, do me a quick favor and smash that like button. It honestly helps this video reach other gardeners who've been quietly struggling with the very same things. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we're only just getting started building the kind of real understanding that the other channels skip right over. And if this channel has earned a real place in your gardening routine, consider becoming a member. You'll be directly supporting deeper, no-nonsense videos exactly like this one. Because once you understand this, it stops being a random list of vegetables, and it starts becoming a skill. And once you've got the skill, you'll never look at a simple jar of water the same way again.